Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to all my friends and viewers. Uh, I will continue to discuss about the salesmanship and the topic is about the close. Now let's proceed to our topic. The selling process, the close. Attitude in closing. As the sales approaches its close, you are likely to feel an increase in the nervous tension. You are as a coach would say, this is a natural yet. You should be careful not to reveal this feeling in in most cases, and especially when selling an experienced buyer. It is better to maintain a calm and casual attitude, for the appearance of excitement betrays the novice. The buyers think evidently that doesn't make many sense. He's so excited over the prospect of making this one. If he doesn't make many sales, there must be a reason. Probably I have overlooked something and I better hold off a bit and check up. The experienced person approaches the close without fear and maintain an attitude that conveys the impression that getting the order is all in the day's work. A bit of routine which must be gone through calm assurance leads the buyer to conclude that taking orders is a quite the usual thing, that there is nothing to fear. Say, if you will just okay, it's there handing the order to the buyer rather than sign on the dotted line. Avoid the word sign, say right or some casual sound word. You may say, I think I have everything here just as you want it, but you'd better check it over yourself. Then put your name right there, indicating you should shift into your closing effort as smoothly as the automatic transmission on the car's lift into higher gear. And don't wisecrack when you start to close us. Now we're coming into the home stretch home. I don't have to go to the week. Spending money is too serious a matter to be treated lightly. This matter of maintaining your poise may be stated negatively by suggesting that you should avoid such acts as getting out your pen with a big flourish, mopping brow, wetting lips, taking a deep breath before the blank, suddenly whipping out order the blank or contract, putting away your visual aids, blurring clothes, or nervous lighting a cigarette. This thing all call the prospect attention to the fact that you are about to deliver the lethal wall up. You should avoid appearing as if you think you are a victor and the buyer. And don't wisecrack when you start to close us. Now we're coming to the home stretch. Hope I don't have to go to the whip. Spending money into serious matter to be treated lightly. This matter of maintaining your poise may be stated negatively by suggesting that you should avoid, such as getting your pen with a big flourish marking brow, wetting lips, taking a deep breath before the plum, suddenly whipping out order blank or contract. These things are called prospect. Attention to the fact that you are about to deliver the lethal wallow. You should avoid appear as if you think you are a victor and the buyer is vanquish. The poise come only with experience, but its growth can be stimulated by a conscious effort on the salesperson. Far to induce feeling self-confidence, this is accomplished by reminding yourself, I know these prospects need the proposition because my pre-approach and the interview indicate it clearly. I know that my proposition will satisfy the need and make me happier. I have made my presentation complete, clear, and have taken care of competition. I think he is confident in my proposition and in me. He has made all seven decisions except the final one. It is logical and natural that he should be ready to make that one by now. As in the case of the orator, the actor, the musician, or the athlete, the highest evidence of the art is the ability to conceal it. That is, the spectator see only the results without being conscious of the means which result is accomplished. The amateur pianist or violinist indulge in contortion and agony, thereby calling attention to his effort. The artist played the same difficult passages with his concealing his art. The big league fielder makes an almost impossible play look easy. One's attitude in the closing phase of the interview has profound effect on the prospect. If you entertain doubts as to the outcome, the prospect will share those doubts. A calm confidence should flow from salesperson to prospect, creating a relaxed atmosphere that should carry over into your departure after the sales is completed. The right time to close. Much has been written about the psychological moment when the minds of prospect and sales reps are in perfect accord. It is often assumed that at some moment the two minds are attuned to the same wavelength and that if the salesperson does not close the sale at this particular moment, the chance of doing so is forever lost. It's apparent, however, it's the most sales that there are more than one time at which the sale can be closed, and furthermore, that this time may be of longer duration than is implied in the word moment. A sales rep may be bring the prospect to the buying stages and not realizing that he has done to so continue the talk too long while the prospect cools off and loses interest. But even under this condition, the sale may not be lost, for you may warm up the prospect once more and close the sale. In the average sale, however, there's a rising tide of interest which can be detected by the seller who is in alert and trained to feel the attitude of other. Any experienced person can tell the signs by which the judge. Although some say that they do not know precisely how they tell, they just feel it through a kind of the sixth sense. Closing signals. Some closing signs are voluntary and some are involuntary. If the prospect asks how soon could you ship, this is voluntary sign of real interest. Signal the sales rep that it's time to close without going to more detail, even though he may not be finished with his presentation. Other comments or questions by the prospect help the sales rep to know when too close. This has been said that when the prospect asks the price, she keenly interested, and that when she inquires about terms, she is practically sold. These are voluntary signs, but is the involuntary sign which the salesperson must learn to read. The attention given by the prospect is one indication, has his higher meager interest and fan to a flame of desire by the salesman's presentation. His air of indifference drops away and his whole attitude betrays interest. He leans forward in his chair, his eyes indicate a less skeptical or hostile frame of mind. Some salespeople say that they always watch the prospect hand, for they often enclose with his mind. So long as he is convinced and unwilling to buy, he keeps his mind and his close. But when his mind's open and his mental tension relaxes, his hands relax likewise. The muscles around the corners of the mouth and eyes also betray the same change in mental attitude. One's shoulders may be lower as the buyer relaxes. One manual of instruction for house-to-house canvassers advises them to watch for this indication. An act of hesitation when your prospect hesitates just for a moment over one article in the line, that is the time for you to step in and close. Tone of voice. Listen to the prospect voice very carefully. With the slightest inflection or a raise or lowering of tone, it may give you the tip that you want in closing. A negative remark, it comes easily sometimes like this. Now, really, that's good, but I ought not to buy it. Watch for that. A twinkle of the eye. Watch your prospect eye. They tell you of far more than words do. A nod of the head when the prospect nods half to herself in a sign to get busy with the other book. Perhaps the prospect rub his chin or pulls what he is here or scratches his head. He may re-examine the Prada or sample of contract. Any one of these gestures may reveal an almost persuaded attitude. Possibly the best way to learn the prospect frame of mind is to ask certain questions designed to bring out this point. For example, the washing machine says, Rick may exclaim with the enthusiasm, we wonder that Mrs. Jones thought the flights must be about $200. If the prospects say, I don't wonder at it at all, it certainly is a nice machine, then the sellers know that it's the time to close. Or one night say, do you suppose you could keep house without it again after you had 6 months? Their reply will probably reveal the state of the prospect mind. Similar question may be formulated to meet any situation and are recommended for use by those seeking to avoid the embarrassment which follow an attempt to close too early. One young sales selling refrigerators, some imbued with the knowledge of his product and his various presentation technique that he lost as sales to a young man who had entered the store with two friends for the purpose of buying his wife a refrigerator as an anniversary present, a highly questionable strategy. After the salesman had talked a few minutes, one of the friends said, Kenny, that box is just right for you. The other agreed and Kenny nodded and our villains went right on talking. Several other very forceful closing signs were given and still the salesman talked on. He was talking as the trio departed to buy elsewhere. Uy, alright. Sorry for the interruption. Prospect no does not end the interview. Many people fear that if they attempt to close too soon, they will ruin their chances for making the sale. This trying to close before the prospect is ready may not be so serious a blunder as it seems. However, it is not difficult to attempt to close and discovering that the prospect is unprepared to swing back into the sales talk again. The suggestion does show, however, that one has more than one close. where the presentation is carefully prepared. Several methods of closing should be arranged so that if the first attempt is unsuccessful, a subsequent effort may produce better results. One of the most successful salespeople on the Pacific Coast make the statement that only in about one sales out of 10 has been able to close on his first attempt. He expects to be turned down 1, 2, 5, 7, or 8 times before he finally makes the sale. He builds his sales stock around the expectation of being turned down, merely adds more value and tries again to close. He does not stop to argue the decision. He tries to figure out which buying decision the prospect has not yet made and proceed. By the way, I should have made another point clear to you, starting off another selling point. A certain amount of this business to revamp is beyond doubt as an asset to nearly any salesperson. It may be found helpful to be hard of hearing when the prospects say no. One such sales rep was trying to sell his bulb to a Chicago candy manufacturer who had used another brand for 25 years. His salesman intercepted the master mechanic at lunch and informed him that the would see him at 2 o'clock that afternoon. Shortly after 2, the master mechanic stormed into the lobby, glowering fiercely. "Let's sit down here," said the Carlson, the salesman. "Do you have any leak bulbs?" "I can buy bulbs," shouted the MMM, the chief engineer by them. Carlson, hearing failed him. "Where do you have most trouble with the leaky valves?" "On your caramel steam kettles," the MM reluctantly admitted, "but I can buy any valves." By this time, Carlson was demonstrating how its valve super hard seat and dice were undamaged after smashing a steel paper clip between them. "What size valves do you use on the caramel steam kettles?" "Three-quarter inch," answered the MM, "but it's like I told you I can buy." At this point, Carlson went stone deep, issued a command to the baffled MM, "You write out the question for 3/4 inch heart, hearted valve and go and get an order from your purchasing agent. Then you see how to get rid of leaky valve. Go ahead." The master mechanic went in and got the order for that single trial valve. Carlson had done in a few minutes was the distributor and his salesman had been unable to accomplish in 25 years. His ear just automatically turned out the word no. Eventually, a prospect grows weary of saying things over and over when it makes no impression. He concludes that the easiest way out is to buy. Last ditch effort. A, sales, a sale may yet be made after the interview is apparently at end. The buyer is relaxed, is feeling a bit sympathetic for the poor salesman and may yield to a renewed effort. Many sales has been revived and brought a successful culmination after the salesman has begun to repack his sample and is apparently talking slave. He made because in the act of putting away some sample perhaps discover and display sample is case and had its casually to prospect while he continues packing. This open one may the way for a new attempt which may yield an order. Sometimes a one called salesperson will issue a mild insult to the prospect as he's leaving in the hope that is provoking into the further debate over the proposition. The verb is usually praised to shock the prospect into reconsidering some emotional objection he had been harboring. One encyclopedia saleswoman said the starborn prospect as she was leaving, "I came here tonight expecting to meet a family that is really care for their children I am sorry to see I was wrong. If the prospect tries to debate, the sales is live again, but it's on different emotional basis. Now, will be no holds barred. In general, it may be said the salesman is justified in trying an experienced mental close whenever he feels that he has succeeded in arousing the prospect desire. He should keep right at trying to close until he takes his lead. And he has been stated the rules for closing a sales is as simple as ABC always be closing. It isn't quiet, that simple, but the idea is sound. Hold a touchdown player in reserve. One common difficulty I encounter in closing the sale is to reach the important point only to discover that all the best talking points have been used. There is no reserved funds. The careful salesperson guard against this predicament by saving few strong points for the closing effort so that he will not find himself exhausted just as the time when he needs all the strength that he can muster. When the salesman sees that the prospect has almost reached a decision but is still hesitating, it must close the sale if he can say, by the way, I don't believe I called your attention to our special packing method, which absolutely protect you against losses through damages and yet have you and yet save you 3 cents a hundred in a freight. This saving is a quantity that you will buy a year will amount to over $50. A conservative estimate that is worth saving, isn't it? It just occurred to me. I don't believe I mentioned that on other to decide we pay all transportation charge. Closing method. There is a 9 tactics for facilitating the prospect final buying decision. The salesman maybe use them in combination. He may use them the trial closes one of the main workout variations of them, but he can sell without them. While this 9 closing method will be discussed one at a time. Here is a list of them that may help give overall impression of the closing tool with which the salesman work. 1. Continue affirmation. 2. Erection of barriers. 3. Assumptive behavior. 4. Closing on minor point. 5. Reduction of option. 6. Standing room only closing inducement. 7. Asking for the order. And 8. Closing on objection. The first three methods are used throughout the interview. They are basic sales tactics and fundamental to the other 6 techniques which are used mainly are closes as closes. Continue affirmation. Prospects should never be asked any question to which that can make negative reply easily. Every question should be so firm that it will be answered favorably or affirmatively. The theory underlying this practice hold that by so doing the prospect are encouraged to think the positive to give favorable answer and that from this force of habit they will more likely answer affirmative at the time of the close. It is also based on the belief that is a prospect that has been encouraged to realize that they are favorable towards the value segment at the offer. They more likely will be favorable to the whole proposition when the times come for accepting it. A husband and wife walk into a carpet shop looking for a floor covering for their new house. The salesperson is trying to sell them on buying an acrylic carpet than rather than the wool one they had in mind. Some of the questions that might be heard asking during the sale could be it would be suspect that you are looking for the carpet that will take hard where yet its fine appearance is that right. Do you want carpet that can be easily cleaned? Even the thoughts go. stain that would come out of wool? Would you like to have a carpet that could not mud done permanently in spot where furniture has been set? Which of the colors do you feel is best for your decor? How much carpet will you need? When you when will you need it? Which of these two patterns appeals to you most? Which of these two ways do you feel would be most appreciated for you? Notice that it would not be natural for the prospects to give a negative answer to any of these questions. A good salesman would never ask, do you like this color? A no answer is highly probable, so rephrase it. Ask which of these color appeals to you most. Keep the entire presentation positive. The purpose of this closing method should be plain by now. It's attempt to make the closing decision only another favorable decision out of many made during the interview. By pursuing the method here outlined, the salesman gently leads the buyer to the desired point without a struggle and as again his assent to many statements that make it difficult to take a stance against the proposition. This up gradually to take much stronger claim than would you have been admitted to at first. Erection of barriers. The erection of barriers throughout the presentation is closely allied with the previous technique of asking questions, except in the instance the purpose is to block the prospect from using certain reason or factors as excuses for not buying at the close. A security sales representative who approached this prospect with the question, I am interested in talking with a business executive who has $25,000 to invest, is an excellent business opportunity and who make decision without asking anyone. Are you such a person? Was erecting a barrier right at the start of the sale? To hear the proposition, the man had to admit he had money and did not have to talk it over with his wife to learn on the lame excuses at the close could be embarrassing to him. The auto salesperson tries to block the procrastinator by asking early in the sale, if I can get you the right deal, are you prepared to act today? The looker heads pow the grounds and plays with his key, thus telling the salesman what he wants to know. The menswear representative asks the dealer, are you open to buy if you see a new style that fits to you, thus blocking the old store? I'm not open to buy. Most insincerely objection can be blocked early in the sales if the salesman is sufficiently clever to perceive them soon enough. Objection cannot be blocked so easily. The good salesperson tries to erect a barrier for every major objection usually encountered. Perhaps he commonly meets a price objection because he is selling a premium product, so he will endeavor to get the prospects of knowledge during the presentation that the product's features are well worth the price and that he can use those premium features. Now, our new design has automatic feed that gives you constant control over input quantity and quality. You should find profitable, wouldn't you? And the surprising thing about is that we are able to do it an amazingly small cost considering what it does for you. Sometimes when consumers benefit is a price well below that the buyer would expect to pay for it, the sales rep will ask the buyer what he thinks the future would sell for. Then when the salesperson quote a lower price, the buyer is ever more eager to buy it. Another times the sales rep must structure the buyer's scale of value towards of the future by pointing out cost or competitor price or the same bit of seeming logic so that the product's true value is perceived by the prospect. Suppose the salesperson senses that prospect is a procrastinator, she might say, I have been told that you are a person of action. A person who makes decision and gets into gear has a barrier been erected that maybe make it more difficult for him to procrastinate. The assumptive clause. The assumptive clause is the basics to a very sales and should underlie all action throughout the presentation as well as the time of closing. The prospect is going to buy, is going to buy. There is no doubt about it. He's going to buy. I know he's a prospect. He has money and the need. I have done an excellent job selling him. My product is the best and my company the finest. There is no reason in the world why he will not jump at the of this opportunity. He's going to buy. This thought should be reflected in the salesman's attitude and demeanor. Not that he should seem cocky or overly confident, but there should be no trace of doubt in his speech or action that would indicate the prospect for the 6 months even feels there is a reason for not buying. This is nothing more than the principle of positive suggestion applied to the closing of the sale. The salesperson assumed by word and act that the prospect had made up his mind to buy. If the prospect does not stop him, the sales is made. It might be go like this. By an industrial adhesive sales rep to purchasing agent, let's see you need 1,000 gallons of number 153 epoxy on the 15th of each month. For the next year, at 15% of our list price. Look over the write-up and if I have it right, initial in the bottom. Buy a box person to a toy manufacturer when can we get your artwork for the box. Some other assumptive clauses are deliveries to be made. To whom do we send the invoice? Can we deliver the order Monday? Any fact that must be determined to make deal can be used as the basis of an assumptive clause. I space on the desk to fill out of the order blank, getting the pen ready, or merely pulling a chair up closer to the desk. Perhaps the salesman can do something which the prospect must to stop him from doing it. He is not going to buy. May I use your phone to see if we have the quantity you want for the immediate shipment? Unless the prospect stops him, the sale has been virtually closed. Sometimes such actions are called physical action clause. The salesman by some physical action communicates to the prospect that he believes that the proposition is acceptable to the prospect and all that remains is complete the details. The carpet, the salesperson might and stop up, take out the tape measure and proceeds to draw up schematic. The retail clerk might start wrapping up the merchandise or writing out the sales check. The car salesman may ha, might hand the key to the buyer. The, the industrial agent may start drawing up the contract or specification demanded by the buyer. The essence of this tactic is an action get into action to indicate to the buyer that the matter is seemingly settled. The buyer has to make a special effort to stop the process, and many buyers will pay to overcome the natural inertia, so the sale is consummated. It will be recalled that this matter of assuming the prospect is going to buy was discussed earlier. Now we understand why. If the sales rep has used this assumptive technique throughout the interview, it does not shock the prospect when he meets the closing phase. If the sales rep has rate, you will find yourself enjoying many more hours of great music with no stereo machine than you ever have with your older model. Or when you pull into a motel at the end of 500-mile drive, you won't feel tired with this car. In every interview, the salesperson should be assuming that the prospect will buy. She say when and not if. she say will end not with. Of course, to start out obviously with this assumptive technique might offend the prospect, but gradually these little assumptive words are slipping in is not presented are introduced more frequently, then the final assumption seems to come naturally. Many salespeople use this clause by simply starting to fill out the order blank, asking such questions as where do you want this order delivered? When will you need this merchandise? Do you think 3 dozen will be enough? Or should I say your or should I send you four? What is the address? There is no reasons to be there is no re, there is really no reason to be bashful in using this assumptive clause for in many types of selling the buyer fully expect to give an order. In some instances in which the salesperson call regularly upon some retailer, the entire presentation is built around the filing of an order of blank. One priority field as device of rather large other order blanks on which its item if makes is printed. The sales rep merely goes right down the order blank asking the merchant how much of this or that he thinks he will need, making suggestion occasionally. Closing on minor point. It is easier to make minor decisions than a major one, so make it easier for the prospect by avoiding the major decision. Yes, I will say bye and substituting a minor decision. The industrial equipment representative might ask, are you interested in our this plan or are you thinking of outright ownership, thereby focusing the buyer attention on this relatively minor point rather than the major issue of the acquisition itself. Usually, there are many minor issues to be decided by prospect in a purchase. Delivery dates, payments, plans, color, optional, features, and quantities required. Any of these factors can be used as a basis for closing. The brush seller, would you like the extension handle on your wall brush or will regularly handle belong enough? The closer seldom asks if but as which. This device is widely used on all types of prospects except those who insist on making their own decision without any pressure, narrowing the choice. This technique is a useful situation where the prospect is offered quite a range of product from which to choose and consequence may find it hard to reach a decision. The man surrounded by 20 pairs of shoes, all of which he has tried on, cannot make up his mind as surely as he could if there were fewer shoes from which to choose. The smart click somehow shows out of sight the shoes in which the customer has shown least interest, gradually focusing attention on the two or three pairs that seem most suitable and favored. The industrial machine salesman would not show its internal line of equipment to the prospect for fear of confusing. Instead, he would narrow the items to those that would be the best for the application at hand. A prospect natural curiosity sometimes encourages her to ask the salesman about products for which she, had, she has no need. If she just happened to see them in the portfolio, this tends to confuse the sales and gets the salesperson off track. Sometimes the prospect can be overwhelmed by a multitude of products to the point that they can be apprehensive of with making a mistake by picking one product from money from the many and will these things, even though wanting to buy one of the products, a good salesperson will assist buyer by helping them eliminate the products that are not appropriate. The wise real estate salespersons learned early in the game not to show a prospective couple every house in town, but carefully to select only those that seem to meet their stated requirements. Foregoing illustration conversation where the product is tangible and present, but this method of narrowing the choice can be utilized where the product is tangible and not present. The security sales rep could narrow a choice to two or three issues merely by talking about them, and then and one can still choose two of three issues merely about them, and one can still further narrow the choice to be the same procedure. Often the salesperson task is to narrow the choice from two to one, as in the case of the prospect who can decide whether he prefers typewriter with the picker type or with the elite type, or sometimes it's necessary to narrow the choice to the amount which is best for the prospect to purchase. The security brokers who has presented the plan for investing a fixed sum each month says, do you figure the $50 a month is about right, or could you perhaps invest $60 a month? This device helps the prospect make a wise decision by eliminating conflicting and confusing concepts until attention is focused on the final choice. It may be a render a real service as well as close sale. The standing room only close. Frequently, the hesitating buyer may be closed by what says people call hanging out or the signs SRO sign. SRO signs means standing room only. All right. Again, the SRO means standing room only. The SRO signs, the initial signifying, of course, standing room only. People want what others want. It is an inborn trait lest the father remove a plaything from the reach of his year-old infant and immediately a protest arises. Although the child may not have touched the particular toy for an hour, it is a contrary to a human nature to let an unfortunate sleep. If a six-month wife wishes to take a strong appeal to this buying motive, let him say, I'm sorry, you can't have that. It's sold 9 times out of 10. The particular article will be the one desired and no other will do. Isn't there a mistake as the deal between actually closed? It is the sure purchaser will take it. Can the manager do something? The appeal to this trade takes many forms. The jobbers, expression, sell the retailer. I would prefer to give you the agency, but if you can see your way clear to add the line right now, I suppose I have to put out in with Jones rather than see the dealership go to the nearest rivals. The dealer may sign the order. This is the last pair of blankets that we have at this special price. Tomorrow we shall be compelled to sell them as a regular price, which is $2.50 a pair higher. It is not only the motive of gain being appealed to it, instincts that impels us to size the things that we are sure will be demanded by someone else. To be sure, the experienced buyer may react unfavorably to the suggestion, especially if it is presented a crude manner. One will do well first to earn reputation for integrity before attempting to urge the buyer to come a decision through the use of such tactics. In other words, the threat that another party was looking at his house yesterday and said that would make up his mind in a day or two is often a transparent lie. Ideal disclosing methods should be used in complete truth. Many times a seller does have only of one the item left and the fact can be used to sell it, shortage the good. Procure and price deal are limited in time. Events like this can be used to close sale. More than any of the other closing method, the SRO plans attempt to create the prospect because of a loss to be suffered or if action is not taken immediately. Example of this familiar, the color is so popular that you can get another like it is after that carries gum. It is the last one we have. Next week, the price of this goes up 10%. Mrs. Smith has looked at the rug twice. I think she wants it. It is the only way it's kind of stuff. I hope you will not be disappointed. If you really want, all these are sample the way to which salespeople trick the prospect into acting immediately through the fear of loss if they delay. Industrial sales stress can be frequent use this technique with complete honesty. And by so doing, they are furnishing information which the prospect needs to make an intelligent decision. There are many some impending events such as like either in the seller plant or in the of supplier or transport agent or inventories may be run short in that particular model or the special deal will discontinue after this week or some other event may be occurred that will be prevent the prospect from exercising free choice at the later time. Offering special indictments to buy now. This technique was referred into in the previous chapter as putting a hook in your clothes. It is used widely to encourage prospect to buy now. A deep sum sales rep for a new concern trying to expand its market share offer with each boxcar or rack 25 sacks of plaster. The Minnesota mining and manufacturing people usually have a special engagement to offer dealers. They will buy some package deal today, one trip they will be giving a dealer a bill for. It is important not to use this technique as a trick. The same inducement should not be used twice at the same prospect, or the prospect will quickly see that he could have the premium whether or not at both at the time, but judicially employed. This is a highly effective way to prod some prospect into prompt action. Asking for the order. In discussing method for closing the sales, we are likely to overlook the perfectly obvious ask the prospect to buy professionally by clear. That is amazing how many people unable to bring themselves to ask for the order. Perhaps they are afraid of being turned down. Maybe they forget to do it. When the sale has been conducted on rather matter on fact basis, it is natural for the salesperson to say, can I get purchase order number right now for my order form? Naturally, there are many variations in the way a salesperson can ask for an order, but a few of them ask bluntly. Do you want to buy? Instead, most prefer toward the question along the lines of the assumptive was using such question as when do you think you can get your purchase order on this shipment? Or how much of your business will you give us in the time? Or it would help the product planners, it would let me know your buying plans as the effects as that is the question. But one sales rep who knew the prospect will close a large sales by saying, I want you to buy this now. So both of us can get good night's rest. If we don't, we will both by nervous wreck. The sales was important to both prices and had been causing worry to both of them. Under right condition of the statement declaring the prospect ought to by many be effective as that says to cover everything you can okay the right there, pointing to right place. Asking for the order can salvage sales that are apparently hopeless. One of the sales reps had been having the little luck trying to get Professor Wong he had known for the same to adopt a certain group. This professor had thrown us all sort of tribal objection into the picture, thus truly muddying the water. Finally, the rep yelled for crying out loud, Harry, stop giving me all this fluff and by my plucking book. Harry broke out laughing and said, okay, okay, it's yours. Naturally, this person must know the prospect, but is surely result one can get forcefully request for the orders. Miss Freebie just with sales trainer inform you of trap clauses. That is the question. Closing an objection or the trap clause. The trap clause, sometimes known as closing as an objection, can be effectively used when the prospect voice but or one significant objection in the sales rep know that it can be answered the prospect from complete satisfaction. Suppose a typewriter prospect offer the product objections such as, but I would like to have a wider carriage machine which is basically with special mathematical symbol on it. Since the sales reps know that it's possible to have a standard typewriter altered to meet this requirement, she said, then I ask, understand it. If I can get you a wide carriage typewriter with the symbol that you want, you will give them made me the orders today. The prospect goes along with the question, and if he is indicated that this is the only one thing bothering him, there is nothing left for him to do except to buy. Trap clause are usually frequently enhanced. Price objection is a serious error to give away on a price without getting to protect committed to buy if the price is met as the prospect may continue to press even a larger concession if his first demand is met. So the salesman say, let this write up the proposition with the price you mentioned and just see what the office will do with it. You've nothing to lose the way, and who knows, maybe we can really get out your deal today. Never know how the boss feels. He might accept this contract once the prospect has signed from the lower price. If the sellers agree to it, the deal is binding. Real estate salesperson find this technique very useful. Trial orders attention that comes to people selling to retail arise when the buyer says, well, you can send me a small trial order and we'll see if the stuff is a goods you play. The danger is the trial order seldom get a fair chance the other lines on the dealer shelves. It is small and cannot make much of display. Furthermore, the dealer is not fully convinced of the proposition merits and does not get behind the goods and tries to sell them. He is inclined to feel somewhat antagonistic toward them and secrets hope that the salesman next appear to trial order with practically intact. He believes that his can eventually unload, and it may be the easiest way to get rid of the suspension permanently. When a trial order is sold, it should be large enough to make a good display, and the salesman should be pleased to see the dealers make serious effort to sell goods. The fate of the trial order is not always oblivion and dust. A small stock of well-advertised brand or underwear was brought by the proprietor on general store in a small town. When the order arrived, there seems to be no good place on the shelf for the boxes, so they were thrown on the counter. Whether the goods promptly sold themselves is getting trial order to display is important. If it is well displayed, perhaps by means of special rack or a case, it may sell very well. Staple goods for which there is a steady consumer's demand regardless of the dealer's effort may be sold in small quantities without danger, although there is a still disadvantage of a higher unit selling cost unless the reorders by May are reasonably ascertained. Usually, however, this is wiser for the 6 months to try for a fair size representative order. A merchant can scarcely become seriously interested in a line of merchandise or really enthusiastic about it until he has a presentative stock and learns that it can be sold. This, however, is no brief for the reps who would load about it and renew time and forget about him. For like the person who is content to sell. Sample orders to merchants who is like the person uh, content to sell. Sample orders to merchants who would profit by purchasing a representative stock is thinking only by his own immediate interest and is not giving seriously consideration to the merchandising problem of either his house or his customer. In selling to industry, I order my prove strategy as in the case of Bob sales reps narrated earlier in this chapter. If this valve perform better comparison with competing mix on the other scatters, this valve that's very likely would lead to adoption of this valve through the factory. The problem is quite different than presented in selling a small trial order to a retailer. Even in selling to industry, one should not set a smaller machine that is really required or grade that is cheaper but will not give satisfaction. Such sales do not lead to future business. A few random hints. A good words to use closing effort is let's let's start with let's say you want this by the 15th. Let's just run over the sum of the points you want to consider the most carefully. Thus, as identify the interest of prospect and sales rep. The two of them are trying to work things out together. They are not opposing each other. The owner of a collection agency say, let's start collecting some of your overdue accounts right away. You can use the money now, can't you? The latter was when it's also helpful, especially when attempting a trial close. When will you be wanting initial shipment of this order when would be the most convenient for me to take the measurement for the new uh, ownings. I can get this heater installed in time for your enjoy it over the weekend when would be better for you. Thursday or Friday. Sometimes it's necessary to ask for payment when the sales made. Here is essential to appear casual about it. You can continue to write up the order and remark, if you give me your check now, I send it right in with this order, or you can be making your check while I'm finishing up the order. The amount is, and while we are talking about dollars, some people try to make the amount sound less formidable by omitting the words dollar. That is $23,500 becomes 23,500 sounds like much more. Get in writing. The spoken word is mischievous culprit of misunderstanding. Never trust your ear or your memory. Always repeat, always put the order in writing at the time it's obtained and have the buyer sign it after checking it for accuracy. There is a salesperson who are reluctant to go into many details and the close fear that something will come up the will up that will cause the buyer to change his mind. The answer to this dilemma lies in the nature of the things. It's foolish not to make certain clearly that importance in the transaction. Similarly, it's a foolish to bring matters that are minor consequence. It is a matter of judgments, but bear in mind that just getting the order is not as getting a customer. A great deal can happen between close sales and the creation of a satisfied customer. Misunderstanding created at the time of closing can result order cancellation and worse, unhappy customer when doubt clarified. Silence. There is a time for silence during a close. A sales rep for industrial properties related, I had made all my points, laid out the whole situation, answered the person question. I saw he was thinking hard, so I shut up and just sat there. Second stretch 2 minutes. We just sat there. Pretty soon I sensed that the first person to speak was lost, so I let it ride. When sat the we sat there for 15 minutes, not saying a thing. Suddenly he said, "Let's do it," and I had to say, the chatterbox will have raised and on on long after he has exhausted his story will be discounted as a fool by the wise buyer. People don't like a deal with fools. Discussion question number one. In what way does the assumptive clause underlie all other closing techniques? Number two. You are an audio consultant. You sell his fees. Who he has been working with the owner of a substantial new home about complete stereo system in the home. You think it is time to close the deal? What are some of the way that you could close the prospect that day? Three, you are the manager of retreating firm that is seeking the business of the large trucking company. You have called on her manager many times, but without success. While she has encouraged you on each visit, you still have been unable to get this business. She claimed that your fees are bit higher than those granted her by the other concern. Now your staff management has given you the authority to meet whatever price is necessary to get the business. What are the some of the closing statement you would prefer for this interview with the tracker? 4. You are selling for an electronic firm seeking a subcontract for printed circuit boards from a large prime constructor. Bids have been made, and it's now up to the purchasing agent as to which of two low bidders you and other firms will get the 150,000 contract. What are some of the closing techniques you might use? An interview with the PA, give you exact words. 5. As a ref for a large chemical company, you are attempting to close a deal with a small plastic injecting molding company for a boxcar of a certain plastic. What are some of the process you could use? Give exact words. 6. You are a CPA who has been contacted by the president of a small manufacturing concern about the possibility of your auditing the books on a continual basis. She had told you that she is looking for over potential accountant for her job. How would you close the deal that day? Think of the possible clauses you could use with complete ethical observance. 7. What are the forces at work to make the standing room only clause effective? In using the trap clause on price projection, what precautions should be taken? 9. Some salespeople try closing. Some salespeople try to close during their approach. Under what circumstances is this wise? Give example. How would you do it? 10. A new salesman confides that he has a fear of closing. Is always reluctant to go into a close. What would you advise him to do about it? Case 15-1 North Side Motor says of closing technique. Development of closing technique. Because of a number of unforeseen developments, Bill Perry, used car sales manager for the Northside Motor Sales Company, had hired during the previous month for new inexperienced sales reps for his 11-person sales force. While he was rather pleased with their overall appearance and behavior, he quickly realized that he needed considerable sales training, particularly on the closing of sales. He had been especially distressed the previous day to overhear three different people lose what he thought were easy sales slowly because they evidently did not know how to close the sales. He vowed to correct the situation. Mr. Perry invited Walt Kane, his assistant sales manager, to coffee. Somehow, during this coffee break, the matter of training of the sales force to be more effective closer was brought up. After more than a little bit of discussion on the problem, Mr. Perry asked Walt to develop training programs, specifically the design to make the salesperson better closer. While Walt faintly protested that his opinion the subject of closing could be treated as one of the topics naturally covered in the organization existing sales training program, he was forced to be overruled by Prairie, which insisted that the topic was too important and no the need to urgent to have it buried along with all other things covered in the existing sales training program. The Northsides Motor Sales Company held regular sales meeting each Monday during under Mr. Perry directive, Walt began contemplating a special training program to teach the used car sales force how to be more effective closer. He at first decided to pull the 11-person used car sales force the Monday morning sales meeting. They are a waste of time. Besides, we shouldn't ask our people to go to training session. A waste that's too much. He plans to meet separately each Monday morning with used to car people for the next month. But session should be enough to get the idea. Walt had a couple of salesmanship devoted slowly to the art of the closing. He planned to buy a few more copies of it and have the salespeople read the book. Which is then each Monday they would discuss what he had been reading. Upon outlining his thought, Mr. Perry was Walt had the reason to worry about his job. Mr. Perry was most impressed with Walt's plan. All the Walt recalled of the meeting we were such words as half-baked, unprofessional, and cold of the meeting were such words as half-baked, unprofessional, and superficial, but did not recall the parting orders. I want well thought out true professional program that will really get our people prepared for closing sales, and I want it by Friday morning. Wall had a problem. He did not know what to do next. He thought his program was pretty good, so he did not know to change to Mr. Perry as he completed looking for another job. Walt thought about asking a friend of his, Sally, who had distinct district sales manager for a large business machine company. That even was is probably before Sally has pleaded. What have Sally responded? There is so many things that you could do that I don't know what to begin. Have you ever thought about inviting a number of highly successful salespeople into tell your people how do we go about closing? How about getting some TV equipment and making a film of them in action? Then having the group analyze their closing technique. There is a lot written about closing technique. I am sure your manufacturer representative could give you material they have developed. Have you talked to your new car counterpart? How they do? How do they train their people? Have you talked with other dealers about problem? Maybe more. Uh, Maybe several of you have the same difficulties and could get together for some common sales training program. Have you thought about just giving people some standard closing techniques that you have developed? There are so many things you could do that I really don't know what to tell you. Walt was overwhelmed with the information overload. He had not thought of any of those techniques. He had thanked Sally for the ideas and retired to this. Then, to think everything over, he just did not know what to recommend. Number one question: why did Mr. Perry react so adversely to Walt's first program? What was so wrong with it? Number two, develop a program for Walt to submit to Mr. Perry. Again, this is the end of my topic, the selling process at close. Now let's go to the next topic about servicing account. Servicing account. All right. Neglected customer never buy. they just fade away. Servicing account. And then I stood with the order in my hand, muttering something about being grateful while the buyer just say that sat there giving me a paint look. Finally, he said, "All you have to do, son, is turn around and walk out the door." It easy as that. I was so embarrassed. Nobody ever told me what to do. After I got to the order, painfully related a new representative for an abrasive manufacturer. It had not occurred to him that a graceful departure may be an important part of the selling process. But think for one moment, doesn't a good departure lay down foundation or sets the stage for the next approach to that buyer or prospect? It is wise to leave with your fences mended and bridges intact. The departure after a successful sale. When you are ready to leave, one of two things has happened. Either the sale has been made or it is not, has not. Assume first that the sale has been made. In this case, you must guard against certain dangerous fall. An inexperienced person may suffer a reaction from the nervous tension under which he has been working. In this reaction, his prime feeling is one of the thankfulness that the interview is over, interview over and the other of things. Under the impulse of gratitude and relief, it is easy to grow if you save in thanking the customer for the order. There is a tendency to release the pent-up emotion in a flood of talk, which may be bothered on the same semi uh, semi hysterical with the young and high strong salesperson. Here is the place to keep a tight rein on one feeling and close what's on one action. Remember that the sale is mutually profitable transaction. That the buyer has neither done a favor nor received one, and that you will have less respect for the salesman and less confidence in his proposition if the salesman reveals by attitude that giving in order in a event. The representative should thank the buyer for the order, but not over effusively and then turn the conversation into other channels, perhaps regarding the new advertising campaign successfully method practiced by some other buyer of the goods or any matter of interest the buyer, while the prospect is signing the salesman should not stage dramatic silence that as if the act of getting order were commonplace there. As you gather up your possession and are taking your leave, you may remark, "Thank you for courtesy for order. I'll I'll be my way to get this moving on it promptly." Or you have made a wise choice. Goodbye and thank you. This raises the question as to whether one should depart at once or should wait here a while. This depends on one certain factor, but it's safe to say that the description should always be the first to rise. If the buyer rises the first to shake your hands by leading you to the door, you probably overstay your welcome. The most important factor is whether or not the buyer wants to you stay. The most merchant, particularly in small places, usually appreciate having people display an active interest in and her problems and rather represent presence having rush off as soon as he has the order. The professional purchasing agent, on the other hand, works faster and you appreciate having the salesman show his understanding of this fact. Here upfront gateways is advisable. Some reps advocate a quickly departure to avoid having the buyer change their minds and cancel the order. In part of a list, if the sale has been truly made, however, there's a little danger of the buyer changing her mind in last minute. If she's fully convinced of the value to her, the proposition, she will not order after the 6 months has left. It is ordinarily an indication of weak salesman as the man imagine he has oversold the buyer, pushing her into purchasing without really convincing her that is so her interest is so bad. The proposition has been sold, not bought. A second blunder that one may commit after successfully consuming the sale is to assume superior attitude as thought he had won a victory. There is an air of condescension about such a person, which has mandate who is a victim and may resort cancellation, and secondly, a little future business has tendency to patronize the buyer with which they resented. The sales should be thought of a battle which you have won, but as mutual agreement on a business matter. The third danger, and one of which the retail clerk is particularly reliable, is the influence. How is often the retail made retail purchase only to have the clerk had him packaged without the thank you, without smile, without even a glance while turned to greet the next customer. The fact a person has both does not remove it from the list of prospective purchaser for the future. Is the time to start the next sale, to leave with him a feeling of satisfaction that will bring him back again. This is really the approach to the next sales. A successful security broker in New York insists that the sale is not an ended when the prospect buy, and it's the salesman just to tell the buyer that he will not be forgotten. An insurance and agents, after selling a policy, say this is the end of this transaction. It's just the beginning. You see, my job is servicing life insurance, not merely selling it. I'll be seeing you from time to time, but please call me anytime if you ever have a question about this policy or any others you have. I'll do my best to help you answer your question or about your problem. The departure is in a truth merely the beginning of the follow-up to be discussed in a later section. Shout out to Anne Marie Siga. Good morning to you and to all my viewers and small YouTubers. The departure when no sale is made. First, it may be laid down as a general rule that the attitude of the salesperson who has lost the sale should be no different from that of the successful person. This is easier to preach than the practice, for it takes a good sport to smile and act friendly after trying in vain to make obdurate prospects see the light, but it must be done. After and once unsuccessful call on a prospect, a sales rep called a second time after putting his signature of liberal order, the buyer burst out, saying, fellow, do you know you are the first salesman who ever went away without an order who actually thanked me for the time I gave you? You sold me this good when you were here before. It isn't the bounding, tearing, hammering type of salesman who developed the best and surest business for a house. On the contrary, the person who can develop business, the person who can take a turn down another but profit in by each turn down and let them win the next interview and make the next interview just a little closer to the order. That is the type of person who is the real source of satisfaction to a sales manager. When the interview has resulted in no sales, one must avoid all of three attitudes: scorn, anger, and inferiority. The person who has failed to sell a car may raise scorn of the prospect who had too little taste or means to buy, or he may be angry and show it. Or lastly, he may feel so defeated that he assumes an apologetic air, which is almost equally bad. It is hard to remain pleasant in the face of a turn down, but it must be done. For right there is a new sales may be started. When the turn down is receiving the outer office, it is hard to take it without wincing, but this is too much be done. It does not pay to let subordinates see that one has been humiliated in any way. Keep cheerful, self-confident with poise unshaken. A good final impression on the subordinate will be valuable later. The real artist will be able to sense the certain thrown down before it's arrived and will contrive to make his gateway an ostent, uh, an ostentatiously. He will guide the conversation into new channels deeply and without a break. Finally, rising and perhaps remarking, "Well, I've got to be getting on. I've enjoyed our visits a lot. We will meet again someday soon. Goodbye." The purpose of making some getaway is to leave the way often for a return. He has prevented the prospect from turning him down flatly and finally. The prospect has not gone definitely on turning. There is a better chance to reopen the salesman if he had been permitted to do so. The follow-up, uh, a danger connected with this method is that if one use is too often, he may acquire the callback habit. It is also too easy for a weak seller to bug out of presentation that is not going smoothly by making an early departure with the mental defense mechanism that he can call back later than all will be right. I'll be I'll make this stage later if I don't press this guy too hard now. No need to irritate him is the way some reps start thinking about such a situation. One problem with callbacks is that they are expensive. It costs a lot of money to make a sales call. It takes two calls to do the job that should have been done in one call. Selling calls will roll. So a serious judgmental problem arises in trying to decide when to stay fight and when to run away. You can fight another day. There's no way to provide such answer here. For it all depends on the situation where the interview is being conducted under this serious difficulty. It may be suicidal to attempt to close. The next best thing being to take a grateful exit, leaving the door open for another interview. The follow-up. The purpose of the follow-up is to make certain that the buyer is completely satisfied with a purchase as it possible to be. This is applied to all buyers whether they are expected to become regular customer or whether they will never buy again from your personally. Before proceeding with this discussion, it may be wise to pause and point out some qualifying factor which may be govern the scope, intensity, and duration of the follow-up. The importance of the sales is perhaps the chief factor. Obviously, someone who has just sold a magazine subscription can be afford to call back several times to educate the customer in how to get the most pleasure and profit from the magazine. But when sale is a big one, it may be vitally important that the buyer be educated to extract the utmost satisfaction from the purchase. The price paid probably includes a margin for this service, and the buyer is entitled to it. Sometimes people feel that selling intangible present a more difficult task than selling something that the prospect can see and feel. Here, a media rep for a radio station is trying to sell time to a retailer who is being asked to spend a good bit of it on something that is said over the airwaves and then is gone forever. It is hoped that somebody hears the message and that a few of the listener will wander into by. However, selling advertisement, or taken the most rewarding career and the pay goods. A second factor is the likelihood of a repeat business. If a long-term relationship is hoped for with frequent and profitable orders of follow-up that will develop the desired permanent relationship should be given. A third factor may be termed educational, that is how much does the buyer need to know about the new purchase before he can use it properly. It may be complicated machine or new system or keeping office records based on unfamiliar form and equipment. It could be raw materials requiring carefully and unfamiliar processing. Perhaps it merely a new line to be sold through retail outlet, whatever the item, if it needs special knowledge and definite performance technique on the part of operator of sales clerk, it would be the salesperson job to follow up the sales sure the product is being handled right. Ignorant or slapshot personnel may ruin the success of the installation and create a most unhappy customer who will go out on this way not to not produce and kill chances of making other sales. It is the last point that makes it is important to follow up fully even a buyers who may never buy anything from you again. They can still hurt your party with other prospects. With the foregoing thoughts in mind, one might strike balance between acting selling effort and follow-up active. The test of whether you should devote a given hours to selling or how or to follow up is simply which is the way spending that hour will result in more sales in the long run. Because the basic purpose of any follow-up is to increase sales. The salesman is not being altruistic. The time is not be giving away. Rather, it is being invested of the manner which will bring greater sales. Now, let's see what you may be getting in return for an investment of your time in follow. First, you can gain the goodwill of the buyer by taking up, make sure that the order was filled and delivered properly. This is especially necessary when the sale is the first one made that the buyer occasionally a sales rep in opposition to personally check the order out of the factory or warehouse or store. Unfortunate furniture sales reps for a large department store in Kansas City. Bo makes practice of personal selecting the pieces from warehouse when the customer who is perhaps furnishing a good room has chosen certain items from a retail stock. These are rated of sample and the sales must try to select the piece of constructed and fine goods and flawless the upholstery from the many duplicate items in one fine woods and flawless upholstery from the many duplicate items in the warehouse. He has cultivated the friendship of delivery truck drivers who take pride in carefully handling of the merchandise when they deliver it. The salesperson for a color television set will try to be on hand when the set is delivered in order to instruct the new owner just how to operate the controls to ensure the best reception. The salesperson also makes the certain that the set is perfect working condition. Even a professional person can utilize this follow-up idea as physician and settle makes a practice of calling up a patient who is under new medication to inquire about how things are going. The physician may be able to suggest a slight change in the prescribed procedure and often can exhort the patient to follow orders. It's simply checking to see that his her customer get what they wanted. Well, adjusting size of order. Retailers are often not sure just how much they owe to order. They cannot accurate forecast demand, especially for new products online. The salesperson can, when following the sales, help the dealer adjust the order, adding some here and perhaps taking back a little somewhat somewhere, and more often than not is possible to an original order. The furniture sales rep, just as mentioned, finds that he can usually sell one or two additional pieces when he follow-ups with the visit to the home of his customer after the new furniture in its place. The place are happy with the new things but are conscious of gap of two that they wish to fill. Industrial selling condition can change quickly as a new orders come in or new contracts are signed. So the salesperson who is on the job can often add to the original order when following up the sales. Proper installation or use. This has already has been touched on. Obviously, a buyer who does not know how to operate or use the new purchase will be unhappy, and may even return it, or even worse, in ignorance. She may damage the new item and then make it under warranty. Here's the problem. Frequently lies that is expression through familiarity with the equipment he knows is so well that then he tends to think everyone else quickly grabs without one explanation. Unfortunately, people are reluctant to admit that they did not uh, fully. It takes the wise person to admit does not understand something. The wisest rep will understand this is take care to test covertly the buyer comprehension of the equipment. Make sure he can operate it by himself. Getting new prospect. In the chapter of prospecting, it was stated the present customer are good source of lead for new business. The suburbanite who has just bought a new power mower and is riding his trumpetly around the yard is likely to be visited by neighbors who want to see new contraption and find out how and if it is for the salesman who is on hand, who when the mower is delivered is being helpful to the new owners is prime position to pick up new prospects. Excuse me. There is a vast amount of words advertising going to this land where every young or telephone employee discuss such matter over lunch and coffee breaks. Employers meet frequently and exchange experience. The salesperson follow up promptly as sales can often catch customer at the time when she can recall easily the names of several friends with whom she has discussed a recent purchase. A later check on satisfaction. This made some time a first step of follow-up and is fourth purpose the creation goodwill of the procurement of new prospect names open buyer skill while for a with purchase. He made a have question or even complaints about it. It tries to get answer is stated out before the grow into big one. Perhaps an adjustment is in order which may be far preferable to losing cost. To all my viewers and friends, small YouTuber, I will end this video, then I will continue this later. No, I have something to do this morning. So, please stay tuned. So, thank you for watching. God bless you all. More blessing to come. Uh, Again, I will continue this maybe in the afternoon, around 1 p.m., 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay. Thank you. God bless you. Bye.